In the beginning, there was doubt. Electric cars were not just rare, they were seen as impossible for the mainstream. A technology reserved for experiments, for dreamers, for concepts that would never see the open road. The world still clung to combustion, the sound of engines roaring through the decades, the smell of gasoline filling the air as a sign of motion and progress. And then came Tesla, a name that shifted the conversation, a company that dared to believe in silence over noise, in electrons over fuel, in the promise of something cleaner, faster, and undeniably different. But for years, Tesla was a dream too far away for most people. The Roadster, the Model S, the Model X icons, in their own right, but expensive, almost aspirational luxuries. Cars for the wealthy, for those who could afford to be early adopters. They proved the technology, but they did not yet prove the accessibility. And then, in 2017, came the moment that rewrote history. The Tesla Model 3. The car that was not just a product, it was a promise. A promise that the electric revolution would not belong only to the privileged few, but to everyone. A compact, sleek, and powerful machine that became known around the world as the people's electric car. The story of the Model 3 is not just the story of a car, it is the story of an idea. An idea born in the mind of Elon Musk years earlier, a vision laid out in what he famously called the secret master plan. A plan that began with high-end cars to prove the technology, and then slowly, step by step, bring prices down, efficiency up, and access wider. The Model 3 was the culmination of that plan's third stage, the inflection point. Without it, Tesla would have remained a boutique automaker. With it, Tesla became a movement. Imagine the night of March 31st, 2016, the reveal event. Crowds gathered, cameras flashing, anticipation at a fever pitch. Elon Musk walked onto the stage, not just unveiling another car, but unveiling a future. When the sleek silhouette of the Model 3 rolled into view, the audience erupted. It wasn't just the design, though its minimalism and aerodynamic lines spoke of something futuristic yet attainable. It wasn't just the specs, though the promise of over 200 miles of range on a single charge shook the industry. It was the price. $1,000. Suddenly, the dream was real. Suddenly, electric cars were not a fantasy of Silicon Valley. They were within reach of teachers, of nurses, of families who had never considered an EV before. That night, something remarkable happened. In just 24 hours, more than 180,000 reservations poured in. People lined up outside Tesla stores as if waiting for the latest iPhone, not a car. By the end of the week, reservations climbed past 325,000. This was not just a product launch, it was a cultural event, a global statement that people were ready for something new, ready for a car that broke the rules of the old world. But the story of the Model 3 was not easy. For Tesla, this was the most important gamble in its history. The company was stretched thin, fighting production challenges, financial constraints, and the ever-present shadow of doubt from critics who predicted its failure. The Model 3 would need to be built at a scale Tesla had never attempted before, from thousands of units per year to hundreds of thousands, from niche to mass market, and that challenge nearly broke the company. The phrase production hell became part of Tesla's vocabulary. Assembly lines were pushed to their limits. Elon Musk himself spent nights on the factory floor, sleeping in conference rooms, determined to make it work. Mistakes were made, delays mounted, and the pressure grew unbearable. But through grit, innovation, and sheer determination, Tesla pushed forward. Every bolt tightened, every line reconfigured, every process reimagined. This was not just about building a car, it was about proving that Tesla could survive. And survive it did. By mid-2018, deliveries began to flow, first in the United States, then across the globe. The Model 3 rolled onto driveways, into neighborhoods, into the lives of ordinary people who had waited, sometimes years, for their car. And when they sat behind the wheel for the first time, they knew it was worth the wait. The interior was unlike anything the world had seen. Stripped down, minimalist, futuristic. A single screen controlled it. All navigation, climate, media, performance. Gone were the clusters of buttons and dials. In their place, a vision of simplicity. Critics argued it was to bear. Owners called it revolutionary. For once, driving felt like stepping into tomorrow. The performance was no less impressive. Even the base versions carried acceleration that rivaled traditional sports sedans. The higher trims, like the performance model, unleashed breathtaking speed, propelling drivers from 0 to 60 in just over 3 seconds. And yet, this was a family car, a daily driver, a machine that combined practicality with thrills in a way combustion engines could no longer match. Range anxiety, the fear that had haunted electric cars for decades, began to fade. With over 200 miles of range at launch, and more with upgraded versions, the Model 3 proved that EVs could handle real-world driving. And thanks to Tesla's ever-expanding supercharger network, long-distance travel became not just possible, but convenient. The road trip was reborn, cleaner, quieter, and surprisingly faster. By 2019, the Model 3 had become more than just a success, had become a phenomenon. Sales soared. It wasn't long before it claimed the title of the world's best-selling electric car, surpassing 1 million units by 2021 and eventually reaching over 1.5 million sold. In markets from California to China, from Norway to New Zealand, the Model 3 became a common sight. It didn't just sell, it dominated. And in doing so, it reshaped the auto industry. Rivals scrambled. Legacy automakers, who had once dismissed Tesla, began rushing to announce their own EV programs. Volkswagen, Ford, GM, Mercedes all realized the world was shifting, and the Model 3 was the catalyst. It had made electric cars mainstream, and there was no turning back. But beyond the numbers, beyond the sales charts, the Model 3 carried something else: symbolism. To its owners, it wasn't just a car. It was a statement, a declaration that they were part of a future, a cleaner and smarter way of moving through the world. Driving a Model 3 wasn't just transportation, it was belonging to a movement, from city streets to rural highways, from suburban driveways to bustling downtowns. The sight of the Model 3 became synonymous with progress. Its quiet hum, its futuristic design, its glowing screen, it all whispered of tomorrow, even as it carried groceries and children and commuters today. This is the story of the people's electric car, the story of a machine that carried a dream, out of Silicon Valley garages and into the hands of millions. A car that didn't just change Tesla, it changed us. And its journey was only beginning. The birth of the Model 3 was not a clean, polished affair. It was messy, turbulent, and chaotic like all great revolutions. Behind the sleek launch events and the glowing headlines was a battlefield, a factory floor humming with machines, engineers working sleepless nights, managers juggling numbers that didn't add up. It was as if the weight of the entire automotive industry sat squarely on Tesla's shoulders, pressing down, daring the company to fail. For Tesla, the stakes were higher than anyone outside could fully comprehend. The Roadster had proven electric cars could be thrilling. The Model S had shown they could be luxurious. The Model X had demonstrated flair, ambition, and technology beyond imagination. But all three were still expensive, niche products. If the Model 3 stumbled, Tesla's dream of mass adoption would crumble. Investors whispered of collapse. Short sellers circled like vultures. In those early days of 2017 and 2018, bankruptcy loomed like a shadow at every corner. Elon Musk himself described those years as some of the darkest of his life. He was not the untouchable tech icon the world often imagines, but a man under crushing pressure. At one point, Tesla's cash reserves dwindled 2 weeks of survival. Production hell, Musk called it. Robots misfired, assembly lines jammed, suppliers missed deadlines. To the outside world, it looked like a disaster unfolding in slow motion. To Musk, it was a war for survival, and yet, inside those chaotic walls, innovation thrived. Tesla refused to build cars the traditional way. The company's culture of rapid problem-solving meant that when a system broke, they rebuilt it overnight. When suppliers failed, Tesla designed its own components. When bottlenecks appeared, they tore apart the process and built new ones. Musk famously even built a temporary assembly line under a massive tent in the parking lot of Tesla's Fremont factory. A move ridiculed at the time, but one that allowed production to continue. Critics laughed, customers kept waiting, and slowly, painfully, the numbers began to rise. By the end of 2018, the nightmare began to turn into momentum. Thousands of Model 3 South were finally leaving the factory every week. Car carriers lined up outside, loaded with the future. Customers who had placed reservations years earlier finally received their emails. Their car was ready. Some cried when they saw it for the first time, a machine they had followed from concept to reality. For them, it wasn't just about owning a Tesla. It was about owning a piece of history, and history it was. The Model 3 became the first car to truly democratize Tesla's vision. It wasn't perfect. Builds had issues, panel gaps were mocked online, and service centers struggled to keep up with demand. But the car's essence overshadowed its flaws. With every delivery, Tesla tightened its grip on the narrative. The future had arrived, and it was electric. The design of the Model 3 spoke a language of simplicity. On the outside, it bore a resemblance to the larger Model S, but more compact, with softened curves and an approachable face. No traditional grille, no unnecessary flourishes, just a clean, aerodynamic form that looked both modern and timeless. On the inside, the lack of clutter shocked many. The single 15-inch touchscreen at the center of the dashboard controlled everything. From mirrors to music, from driving modes to navigation. At first, it felt alien, but soon it felt natural, as if cars had always been meant to work this way, and that screen was only part of the story. Tesla's software-first approach meant the Model 3 was not a static machine. Owners woke up to updates, their cars gaining new features overnight. 1 week, acceleration improved. Another week, new safety functions appeared. Later, games, streaming apps, even karaoke. The car was alive, evolving, adapting, becoming more valuable with time. It was an experience no combustion car could ever replicate. Performance, too, redefined expectations. A family sedan was not supposed to launch from 0 to 60 in under 4 seconds, but the Model 3 did. It was not supposed to corner with the precision of a sports car, but the Model 3 did. It was not supposed to cruise silently for hundreds of miles, but the Model 3 did. It broke the rules of what a practical car could be, blending efficiency and exhilaration in a way the world had never seen. And it wasn't just in the United States. The Model 3's arrival in Europe triggered a surge of enthusiasm. In Norway, it became the best-selling car of any kind, gas or electric. In the Netherlands, lines of Model 3 south-filled highways, a visual symbol of a nation embracing the future. In China, Tesla's gamble to build Gigafactory Shanghai paid off, and the Model 3 became a bestseller in the world's largest auto market. What began as an American dream was now a global revolution. But perhaps the most powerful part of the Model 3 story was its symbolism. Owners spoke of how the car changed their relationship with driving. They spoke of the quiet serenity of electric motion, the thrill of instant torque, the satisfaction of fueling with clean energy. Families proudly said they had bought their first EV, not as a luxury, but as a necessity. For the first time, an electric car was no longer the second car or the experiment. It was the car, the only car, the family car, everywhere. The Model 3 turned heads. At stoplights, people asked questions. In parking lots, strangers approached owners with curiosity. How far does it go? How do you charge it? Is it really worth it? And over again, the answer was yes. The car paid for itself in fuel savings. It made commutes easier. It brought joy. It turned skeptics into believers. And while the owners smiled, the rest of the auto industry scrambled. Ford announced the Marquis. Volkswagen pushed its ID series. Porsche unveiled the Taycan. GM promised a new wave of electrics. Suddenly, the EV wasn't a side project, was the future. And all of it traced back to the Model 3. The cultural impact rippled further still. Hollywood began featuring Teslas in films, not as futuristic props, but as present-day symbols of progress. YouTubers filmed their delivery experiences, their drag races, their road trips. Social media feeds filled with photos of gleaming white. Interiors of minimalist dashboards, of autopilot engaged on long stretches of highway. The Model 3 wasn't just a car, it was a lifestyle, and autopilot itself was another revolution. Though not fully autonomous, Tesla's advanced traverse system gave owners a taste of what was coming. The Model 3 could steer within lanes, adjust speed, even change lanes on the highway. It was not perfect, and controversy swirled around its limitations. But for many, it was magical. A glimpse into a world where driving could be shared between human and machine. A world where the future felt closer than ever. The Model 3 was not without criticism. Some complained of quality control. Others worried about Tesla's bold promises of autonomy. Traditional automakers sneered at its minimalist design, and yet none of it stopped the wave. The car's appeal was undeniable. Its demand was unstoppable. For every critic, there were 100 customers lining up to place their order. By the early 2020s, the Model 3 had cemented itself as the cornerstone of Tesla's lineup. It was no longer the scrappy underdog, it was the standard. Cities were filled with its silhouette. Supercharger stations buzzed with its presence. It became the car you saw everywhere, the car that made electric not exotic, but normal. And that was its greatest triumph. The Model 3 changed what we expect from cars. It redefined value. It reset the scale for performance, for efficiency, for technology, and it proved something vital, that the world was ready. that ordinary people, not just enthusiasts or the wealthy, wanted electric. That the revolution was not just a theory, it was here. And as more Model 3 South rolled out, as more families brought them home, the impact deepened. Kids grew up in the back seats of Teslas, their childhood memories filled with screens instead of dials, with silence instead of roaring engines. A generation was being shaped by the Model 3, one that would see combustion as outdated, almost archaic. The world's best-selling EV, over 1.5 million units sold, from skeptics to believers, from doubt to dominance. The Model 3 was not just a car, it was a milestone in human history.